Drop your shorts and bend over, Mr. Babar.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's a dickfer.
What's a dickfer?
To pee with.
I got a lot of show today. I gotta just get started. I just gotta gather everybody in there. Welcome to the show. Hey, it's Friday morning. Good to see you. Hey, it's Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Gather in. It takes people a little while to ease on over from Steph World. I appreciate it. Just take your time. It's all good. We have plenty to talk about, plenty to do, plenty to see. And it's, I made the mistake right out of the gate, if if I may say so my damn self, of going back and going, you know what? We haven't done like Twitter trends in a while, mainly because it's not called Twitter anymore. It's called Shiter or Sheeter at best. With the X on the front of it, it's now shitter. I'm pronouncing the X Xi Jinping style, of course. And there's sort of a bank shot of craziness in any given news bit, and I want to show you how the sort of bounce around frigging works. But there are a couple of, let's see, is this it? Yeah, okay. First one that popped up when I went over there, if I may, and hello chat room, by the way. Let me open this up for you guys. Let me see if I can. There you go. And here's the people, and there you are. Hi. Good to see you. Hello. Good to see you. 91 felonies he's done. It's interesting that seems to be a magic number for a lot of these folks. That a lot of people are saying that the number, this has to be there has to be something in there that he did wrong because there's so many charges. That seems to be the growing paranoia on the right. We watched Stu from Glenn Beck's show kind of actively go through that thought form right in front of Glenn the other day. But it's not just him. It's a consistent one. That 91 number is really getting some hooks in, folks. And it's not going to stop there. Quite frankly, they're going to keep adding to it. And the idea is, and there's a reason they keep adding to it. One is most of these things that he's going through, the indictments, and we'll get to what I was going to point out in a second because I love your distractions and they're wonderful. And thank you. One of the reasons why there are going to be more indictments against him in each case, they're going to add charges and that kind of stuff, is twofold. One is, for every one charge they gave him, there's 2 or 3 they could have given him on top of that. You know what I mean? It's like, you ever see the unfolding of one gun incident can be, like it can be, I don't know, use of a firearm in a robbery seems to be the right away one, but discharge of a firearm in city limits. And then there's, a charge for brandishing a weapon in the commission of a crime before he actually fired it. And then there's, attempted murder because, even though you said you weren't shooting at them, you're shooting in their general direction to get them to give up their wallet faster. And then let's say you had a warrant or a felony or whatever, the felon with a gun, you know how I'm talking about. And then when they want to, they basically go, we got you on all 9 of these because you violated all these 9 things. In the one thing that you did, you're violating 9 different fucking laws because you're that kind of an asshole. And but we'll let you plead down to 2 of them, do a little less time. We have evidence enough to convict you on all 9, but we don't need to spend the time on a trial if you just want to plead guilty, save the taxpayers a lot of fucking money, and save us all some fucking time. Just say it. Just say you did the 2 big things, and you'll go to jail for a shorter amount of time, and then fuck off. Right? That happens all the time. All the time. That's the basis of a plea deal. And if and it's one of the things they use as pressure on a defendant who is super fucking guilty, but wants to drag it out or wants to make a big, I don't know, like a political case out of it or a social case, or they want to, argue their innocence even though they're dead to rights, and they want to waste everybody's time because of ego and whatever. Maybe short of serial killers, a lot of like chest puffing asshole crooks will oftentimes go, fuck you, I'll do it. I'm gonna fight this or whatever if they can afford it, and then ultimately they lose and it costs millions and millions of dollars, and it could have cost, $1,500, whatever the court day costs were for them to walk in, plead guilty, be sentenced, and go the fuck to jail. So they do that. They stack up a bunch of them, all of which are chargeable, all of which will give you jail time, all of which you violated, all of which they have evidence of because of who you are and what you were engaged in, you broke a series of laws in your one holdup of a person. So they can get you on all of them. They go, basically, we're going to charge you with all 15 of these counts or 27 of these counts. And they will add on to them because they can just sit there now that you're in custody. They can look at you and go, okay, by the way, this asshole has 3 domestic violence charges against him as well, and we have a law against somebody owning a domestic with a domestic violence charge against them having a gun, but we'll charge them on that as well. And so they'll pump that up until you break effectively and just plead down if they really want to save themselves the time. Sometimes they just want to throw the book at you, and you have that's the weight that all the Trump folks, Giuliani and the rest, are weighing right now, because Georgia might want to make an example of you, so they don't give a fuck about a plea deal. They want you to go to court because they want to drag you out there and show everybody the criminality you were engaged in. And all the Trump defendants in this situation have that problem. They all have that problem because there is more value in showing the case against them for public safety reasons, for belief in the justice system reasons, all that shit. There is more value in everybody watching these people get tried than letting them get away with it, or getting them a slap on the wrist and everybody going, they just used all these giant things to crowbar all this and scare them, and then they signed up to a plea deal, and that's why they're in jail, because they're trying to stop them politically. Like that's where all the maggots are going. And so the best course of action, quite frankly, for Fani Willis and for Jack Smith is full-on fucking trials. There is no reason, especially the big fish, anybody in the top 3 or 4 or 5 of the group in these, especially in her racketeering case, but also in the Jan 6 shit, like Trump, Giuliani, Sidney Powell, that crowd, they were all in the White House, in the Oval Office, engaging in this bullshit. So the country almost needs us to see them tried, so that you have what it would be for the MAGA folks is their Amber Heard moment, where they finally hear the tape of her going, what are you going to tell people? You're a man and you were domestically, a victim of domestic violence, that kind of thing. Where people were, once they heard that, they were like, whoa, hold on a second. I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, and I wanted to believe this side of it, but that's awful. No. And that's what got a lot of people out. That's what shifted the tide overall. Similar thing with MAGA. Once some of the internal communications start coming out. Now, a lot of these internal communications have been out for a long time. Specifically, the I just read this morning again the memo that they sent out to set up the electors. And oh my God, I like one element of it that I thought was fucking fascinating was their argument for how they were going to legitimize the Trump Pence electors in the case that they lost the state and the electors for the Biden electors were upstairs, the Biden Harris electors, which are really the legit state electors, are upstairs in the state legislature hall, whatever whether it's Wisconsin or Georgia or Arizona or whatever, meeting in the normal kind of perfunctory business that they do, where they call to order and they accept them and they go through the motions. It's really all about the signing of the piece of paper, but they have a bit of ceremony to it, and it's legit and it's overt. You can be present, see it happen, so it doesn't happen behind closed doors. Their theory was, and this is like fucking amazing, their theory is that all it says in the Constitution is that they have to meet in the state capitol. And from that, and as long as the electors meet in the state capitol and sign their electoral pledge on the grounds of the Capitol, they have satisfied this. They've satisfied the legal necessity, the rules of the state constitution or the federal constitution. All we got to do is be in the building. So even though the real electors are meeting upstairs, we can go into a fucking basement conference room and have our own little cabal meeting with the lights dimmed or whatever, and Die su Domine, dona eis requiem, right? And then we can, if we drive faster than they do, we'll get to DC first. I mean, honest to God, they even wrote in there, it may seem odd, but, and good Lord. Anyways, so fascinating aspect of that scheme. And again, why I feel such great comfort and why I feel our democracy is not in any major danger. It is always under attack. Democracy is always under attack. The autocrats, the monarchists, the fucking and then the anarchists on the far end who don't believe that any form of government represents anybody. So even if you vote for everything, fuck it. Like that crowd, all those folks are always attacking democracy. They are always doing everything they can to either install someone with absolute power in elements of government, as how the governor controls the state, how the Supreme Court of a state holds the state, how the Supreme Court of the United States, or the presidency, the Bill Barr supreme executive concept, or burn it all down because this thing's so corrupt and full of, it's too complicated, and people will automatically, if you destroy the government, will revert into this sort of like, I'll give you a sandwich if you mow my lawn form of economics and governing, which is also insane and is something autocrats and monarchs and monarchists, I guess, and that crowd would want to happen because they're basically just waiting with guns for that day. So that their idea is that would be the and Rip Portland, hashtag Rip Portland. I'm sorry, I should have. That was my bad. I should have said it right away. Rip Portland, hashtag Rip Portland. That was part of the right-wing provocateurs involved in the Antifa riots and waiting around in the eastern part of the state. We're all babbling about is that once the anarchists, once the fucking Antifa guys firebomb the state building and kind of using them as sort of idiot shock troops, they'll do all this shit, and then they're really just a bunch of like white teenagers from the suburbs, playing I don't know, playing freedom fighter. I don't know what the fuck they even what the version of, walking around with bags of soup. It's bags of soup, isn't it? It's hold on one second, if I may. It is let's see.
People coming over with bags of soup, bags of soup.
Bags of soup. Thank you. Yes, we have some soup bags showing up in the chat right now. Thank you. Um, that's the official Antifa symbol in my chat room, I guess. The problem is you guys are actually anti-fascist as opposed to just simply being. Hold on, is my camera on the wrong fucking thing? Hold on one second. This is it. Yeah, so that's left over from last night because I was messing around. Yeah, there we go. That's my That's my like my character camera. And it makes me like it looks all washed out because it's an effects camera. Ugh. Anyway, sorry, I didn't realize I looked so pale. But where was I? Oh yes, Antifa shock troops. So the idea is, and this has been the plan for since. I mean, they talked about this shit in the '60s. The KKK and other groups like that were talking about how, I suppose, we're talking about how the hippies and, well, I mean, it boils down to Helter Skelter. If you'll recall, Charles Manson's plan to take over the world using, his little mini hippie army, Helter Skelter, which was actually just a kind of run-of-the-mill racist plan. Because his idea was, there's going to be a race war. It's inevitable. Black people will win because they're physically stronger, but they're not smart enough to run the place, so they'll need some white people to run it for them. And then there'll be this white group that runs Black World. I'm not kidding. That was the plan. And apparently he stole the plan from somebody else, some other lunatic. But it's standard run-of-the-mill Ku Klux Klan horseshit. But the idea is like, use the hippie movement to clear the road, weaken everybody, make everybody peaceniks, so they'll lay down their guns so black people will have an easier time killing everyone. And then they'll have it's fucking goofy. And the best part about it, that was indeed the plan. That was indeed Helter Skelter. And I found, in all the oh my God, this was his master plan idea about Charles Manson, was it was this white supremacist plan that he got from the White Album, because the album was white. I seriously, you got your white supremacy plan from the White Album. No, the Beatles aren't at fault at all. It wasn't the Beatles. The Beatles had fucking nothing to do with it. It was literally because albums were black vinyl at the time, and the White Album just had a white cover. Sam Kinnis's bit about that is classic. I don't know that I've seen that one about Helter Skelter or about Manson in general. I got to interview Charles Manson in the 80s for my master thesis. Holy shit. I did a damn fine impersonation of him on Talk Soup. Maybe I'll post that. I'll find that sketch and post it later. My buddy Chris Bono and I brought him in when Gene Siskel quit and Roger Ebert was going on alone, and he was looking for another partner. They were swapping people in to do movie reviews with Roger Ebert, and so they were just it seemed like they were bringing in fucking anybody. And so we did a sketch called Manson and Ebert, and I like, that was one of the most fun sketches. And all my lines from that are actual Charles Manson quotes. Sorry, yes, Gene Siskel died from cancer, but he was ill when they were looking for his replacement. I don't think he didn't just drop. Yeah. I'll dig it up. I'll post it on my channel. So anyways, we have gone in the time of our modern political parlance, from the kids are all right in the 60s and stupid plans being what they are, stupid man, to this kind of shit. Hold on. Yeah, this is how you make headway in a crowded field of Republicans these days. Yeah. I once worked with a Manson family cult member. Wow. Saw Beach Boys at Jones Beach. Saxophonist threw his sax to the stagehand. He missed it and it went in the ocean. Oops. Yeah. So Vivek Ramaswamy wants to raise the voting age to 25 years old. Don't worry. You'll still have selective service at 18. You'll still you'll still have all the responsibilities of adulthood at 18. You just won't have a fucking say for another 5 years. Or sorry, 7 years. Yeah. That's the part that gets me. That's the part that stands out to me. Is this dippy motherfucker wants to take away the right of 18-year-olds to vote, but all your legal responsibilities as an adult stay right where they are. Here's and this is nutty, and obviously if you want to see a distinction between Democrat and Republican, as a Democrat, I'm a Democrat. I voted for Joe Biden. I'm going to vote for Joe Biden again. I'm a Democrat. I like being a Democrat. I'm proud to be a Democrat. And everybody else is like, but, shut the fuck up. I don't care. I'm a grown person. I think of myself as an independent. Well, how do you vote? Well, mostly this way. Well, then you're mostly that, so shut the fuck up. Try to make that better. Good Lord. Anyways, here's the difference between Democrat and Republican, as I see it. This is a good example of it. Vivek Ramaswamy, a Republican candidate for president of the United States, who is running in the primary currently, and is the number one second choice if Trump dropped out at CPAC or one of these other, maybe it was Talking Points USA or Turning Points USA, whatever. They had a poll, and if you take Trump out, he went to number one at that particular thing. So it's ridiculous, but whatever. He's got standing. He's getting a lot of he's getting pushed to the front of the line on a bunch of areas. Never gonna, by the way, he will never be the nominee, and neither will Nikki Haley, and neither will Tim Scott, because a person of color has no shot being the presidential candidate for the Republican Party in this day and age. No shot. None. Because I will tell you, there are a good portion of Republicans who consider themselves just straight up conservatives who will vote for a person of color who's a good Republican as far as they can. They don't care. They were the people who were like, draft Colin Powell and all that shit. They're not all racist, but the ones that are will pack their fucking shit and go home. No shot. None. No shot. Half the fucking party stays home. What's left of it anyways. All right. So anyways, doesn't matter. But the point is, Vivek Ramaswamy wants to raise the voting age to 25 because he thinks American the youths, are not intelligent enough or, morally advanced enough, or your brain isn't done, turning from kid gelatin to full adult brain until you're 25. So what you think doesn't matter up to it. You can be ambulatory and totally capable. We can send you to war at 18, but your brain's still, not quite where it's going to be in terms of maturation. So we should wait till then. We'll still make decisions on your behalf, and you'll still make decisions on your behalf as far as adulthood. You're responsible for every crime you commit at that point because you're adult enough to do that. And these fuckers, by the way, for the record, want children charged as adults. I'm against that, just for the record. That's a line I have. I suppose there would be the occasional egregious situation, but still no. Anyways, point is, he wants to raise the voting age to 25. This is not that weird in Republican circles. How do you thin the voting herd? How do you drive down the number of available voters? That's it. That's what they're trying to do. That's what this is about. This isn't about the maturation of the people voting, because there's a bunch of, have you heard some of the Trump voters at his rallies talk? And I don't mean just ideologically. I mean grammar. so the argument that at 25 you're just magically qualified in that regard, and it's really that's the answer to it, is a bit absurd. That said, my response to the idea that if anybody brought it up that if they said I believe that 20 you're not even capable of understanding the issues until you're 25, my response would be there was a period in human history and in American history where your lifespan was about if it was double 25, you'd be lucky. If you lived to be 50, it was a fucking miracle. And during that time, people had to mature very fast. You had 16-year-old homesteaders because their parents had been killed by, thieves or revenuers or native tribes or whatever in their battle, and you're sitting, you're a 16-year-old, and you're the adult in the house because everybody else is fucking dead. Those people grew up to be, in some cases, heads of industry. It grew up to be important people in American history. And the fact that they had to mature very fast because of responsibility is part of the reason. Well, I would argue, if your complaint is that the American public is not smart enough to vote until they're 25, then you should spend everything you possibly can on education. Solve for the real problem, not your problem, because that's what you have here. Vivek Ramaswamy is not solving for America's problem. Vivek Ramaswamy is trying to solve for the GOP's problem, which is that they are running out of fucking voters. And they believe that, 18 to 25-year-olds are too dough-headed to vote their way. Now, again, this would eliminate almost everybody at Talking Points USA. So I'd be curious to see if he would ever launch that at one of their events. This is the article, by the way. 2024 presidential contender Vivek Ramaswamy has unveiled his latest policy platform, raising the United States voting age to 25. According to Politico, the fact that such a move would require amending the Constitution and that his own staff hates it hasn't dampened the 37-year-old entrepreneur's ambitions to strip voting rights from millions of young Americans. Under Ramaswamy's plan, Americans under 25 could only vote by joining the military, becoming a first responder, or passing a civics test. Again, never mind the racist background of literacy tests and jacking that up to now a civics test in that regard. Like you have to pass the same test that people who want to be citizens have to pass, for example. And also only by joining the military, becoming a first responder. Hey, Republicans, that's fucking communism. That is, unless you work for the government, you don't have a say. That's exactly how the CCP picks leaders. Also, never mind whatever the fucking standard is for what his passing a civics test. Who writes the fucking civics test? Some asshole in Florida? Get out of here. No. And again, there's a real simple answer to this. Treat the military with respect in both its use and its your response to veterans' needs, and people will join the military. First responders, cities should give bonuses and the like to first responders if they need them, and also extra fucking give them a parade once a year. I give a shit. Honest to God, a first responders parade, not a bad idea. I know a bunch of you the rando anti-cop fucks who will always call 911 when they're in trouble, but the rest of the time they're middle-class white people rapping 911 as a joke or fuck the police in their car is embarrassing to start with. But you don't get to where it's the police are supportive of and make sure that everybody's treated equally by cutting funding and cutting training and cutting all that stuff, because what happens is they can't afford anybody good, so they end up only being able to hire dudes who like doing the job because of the power it gives them. Long conversation for another side, this goes to EMTs as well, firemen, fire persons, that part of it. It would be easier to simply run a like First Responders Day in a particular city and make a deal out of it. Go around to schools, make sure there's, a fireman or a cop or a EMT that goes in and talks to kids and that kind of stuff. Retro pay teachers that have retired. It's not a bad idea. Especially, I would argue, if they retire and they still haven't paid off their student loans, maybe that's it. Because they can't, not because they, like if they volunteered or they worked in a low income area or those kind of things. I think that's not a bad idea. So anyway, yeah, Grubhub. No, Grubhub is not a first responder. Although during COVID, I would argue there was some first responder status that would go to people who would deliver to homes. Wouldn't you? Coughing, sneezing motherfuckers, and you're like, I'm gonna leave it on the doorstep. Run away. None of that crap is gonna happen. Timothy McVeigh was a veteran. Yeah, well, I would also put, yes, some of the responsibility falls on some of the bad vets we've had over the years. That doesn't taint the rest of them. You know what I mean? That is sort of the equivalent of the cop argument that most people have. Is that Derek Chauvin cop's bad. If you did that with any group of humans, and this is where the Blue Lives Matter thing came from, if you do that with any group of humans based on their skin color, you're an absolute racist. If you did it because of their sexual preference, you're an absolute bigot. So extrapolating it onto somebody who takes a job, especially one that's in public service, it's like saying, it's the same thing, I would argue, as when right-wingers call teachers groomers, and then we lose all of our teachers. The same thing has happened. There's almost like in the culture war that's happening, you can see that in the volley of fire from both sides, the far left, all cops are bad crowd, the actions they took post George Floyd and pre-George Floyd, but also like specifically during that period of time, and Donald Trump didn't help this at all, but it was definitely part of it, led to early retirements and a hard time recruiting and difficulty getting people to join the police force. And people are like, why the fuck should I put my life on the line when nobody's going to appreciate it? If I'm ever confronted with somebody who tries to run me over with a car, they're going to be considered unarmed, and fuck this, and I'd rather go do this. Right? There you go. So that was the impact, lowering the number of police in a lot of areas, and that led to a spike in violent crime. You can track all that directly. And then the other side, where they were saying all teachers are groomers, screaming at school board meetings, all that kind of shit. The violence that they encountered led to a bunch of teachers retiring early. Even COVID added a little bit to that, but largely because they wanted to reopen the schools, putting these teachers' lives in danger. Right? So they were like, fuck it. I'm not going to die for, an ungrateful school system. I'll tutor or something and still fulfill my life's dream of becoming of helping out. So that was the impact. That was and by the way, I don't know what the sorry I ain't gonna bootlick thing is. Honest to God, it's very strange. It's that's not required. Baseline respect is not bootlicking, and not assuming the worst of a group is indicative of the bigger side of the group. Period. Make a mandatory voting law like they do in Australia. I'm not against that, except there with a mandatory voting law come a lot of other federal compulsion laws, which is why we don't have one. If the government can compel you to vote, they can compel you to do other things as well. It's the slippery slope argument. In that particular case, it is indeed true. And in some degree, like Australia's lockdowns were harder than ours were. They were more draconian in that regard. Nice topic change. I didn't do that when somebody came up in the chat. That's how the morning show works. It just does. Anyways, point being is that For defending police have worked in the field. A-holes exist when there isn't accountability, but all yeah, that's the silly part, Teresa. And it's also it's not simply that it's wrong, because it is. It's that it is hypocritical and absurd, even from their argument, because every single one of them calls 911. No, but none of them are pulling the snitches get stitches bullshit when they need, if they see an accident or they, and again, we looked at, good example is we looked at yesterday after, because the right has been attacking the FBI, and it's not that different from the far left ACAB stuff. We looked at how Marjorie Taylor Greene, accused Fani Willis of not going after child sex traffickers and just letting it happen. And that the number, which was, by the way, an average number for years in that, before she took office, like that's the standard number, the standard assumption by volume of humans, amount of traffic at the airport, how many people they arrest versus how many people so you assume if you catch this many, there's this many that get away. That it's that kind of extrapolated number, right? Or victim statements. They'll tell you how much they've experienced, if that makes any sense. By the way, I'll have the chat up here so we can discuss this because it's important. That she was making the same kind of argument, about they're just going after Donald Trump. That is the same as saying all cops are Chauvin, is that the FBI is full of people who just go after Donald Trump. They intentionally ignore all the monsters among us and stuff. And we showed Fani Willis. Did I say Fanny? Fani. Yes, Fani Willis. We showed specifically in Atlanta, just in the Atlanta metro area, that they were not in coordination with the FBI, the local police there, and and her office were engaged in an anti-child sex trafficking program that they've been. I mean, it was in existence federally for a long time, but they're coordinating with it specifically. And there was a list. We looked at it over a matter of weeks. They busted probably 25 people and saved a couple of hundred people that were being sex trafficked. And I want to say 39 of them were minors, were children. And the idea, and by the way, this is not like, oh my God, America's numbers. The numbers are horrifying worldwide. And the more dangerously impoverished a country gets, the more of that there is, period. But the idea that anybody, and I've yet to hear it, I mean, maybe you will, maybe somebody in the chat room will do this. The feds arrested a bunch of traffickers and found lots of victims. Right. The argument is in the abolish the police, abolish prisons, all cops are bad, blah, 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 is screw those kids, screw those women, just let them we don't care. I don't like what I saw in an online video, so therefore what they're doing is awful. And if I was sitting on a jury and they brought any of these people in front of me who had, chained a 12-year-old to a wall for months on end before transporting her to another part of the country for the same thing to happen to her over and over again, that if I was sitting on a jury and, I would say, let them go free because prison's bad and cops bad. If that's your argument, I don't know where, talk about being politically homeless, but I don't know where the hell you land in the world of politics, because that doesn't sound left to me. Because I would argue that the root best characteristic of left-leaning politics is a compassion for the exploited. Legalize prostitution, please. Well, I agree with that for adults, absolutely. But I'm specifically making a case about children in this case. Criminal activity. And a criminal activity, by the way, that I will unlike Alan Dershowitz, I and I think no one in my chat room will argue that there should be no such distinction. That I don't think any of us are going to follow Dershowitz that there is an age of consent, and why bother? No, there's an age of consent, and there's a high school crossover age where you're inside the window of maturity of somebody else. If you're 19 and they're 17 or something like that, whatever. That's in the world of interaction, relationship with someone in your same like maturation wheelhouse. But again, you want to talk about the no-go zones? I'm cool with 18 being the no-go zone for everything. So fuck that. And again, this applies to, again, I do not believe that people under 18 should be tried as adults. That's my personal belief. And like I said, there may be egregious moments where there's a special circumstance occasionally, but in general, I think that should be the thing avoided most of all. Yeah, no death, but live chained to the wall. Exactly. Yeah, no way, Luis. No, WW, no. Yeah, 18 is an adult. We've lived with that for a long time. It's a decent standard to have. It's a bridge point between the immature and older and the younger and mature. It's a good, like, consensus number. It also helps with the rite of passage, where a child who's growing up can look at that number and go, I got to get my shit together because I could be on my own at that age. And I'm responsible for my actions. So then having a set date actually gives you that maturation goal point, that goalpost. And if you move it to 25, like Vivek Ramaswamy wants to do, you actually lower the maturation values because you don't even have a fucking say in the country you live in until you're 25. You can die for your country. Well, you don't die for the physical space. You die for the ideals that protect you and your loved ones and people around. Yes, you can die for. You could argue that that saying that like our soldiers die for America or whatever is really dying for to keep the Constitution in place so that everyone has the right to choose their own leaders in a world where that's not normal. That is, and it wasn't normal. So if they do a horrible crime as a young child or a teen, they need to go a mental hospital, continue to have those thoughts. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think long-term psych care, if it's even that extreme, makes way more sense. And definitely not the death penalty, period, end of story. Like, and, Texas wants to do that. And I also think Texas and Florida have talked about this shit for a long time, trying kids as adults. And let me tell you something. There is a thin, you want to talk about groomers. There's a thin line between somebody arguing that somebody can go to jail for the rest of their life under the age of 18 and making that kind of depth of decision that when you're 16, 15, 14 years old, you can make a decision, a bad one, that will lead to you being in jail or being an adult for the rest of your life from that point forward. There's a thin line between that and saying, well, of course a 14-year-old can marry a 55-year-old, right? Because if a 14-year-old can make a decision that sends them to jail for the rest of their life, what's the difference between that and marriage? Right? Marriage is a lifelong decision in conservative quarters. There shouldn't be any no-fault divorce. You should have to show it or whatever. So anybody, by the way, I'm automatically suspect anybody who wants to talk about trying kids as adults also wants to have sex with them. That's my feeling. Anytime I've ever seen anybody make a hard argument about trying kids as adults, I get the creep vibe off them. It pegs the meter on my Chris Hansen odometer, or Chris Hansenometer. Marriage is the leading cause of divorce. That is slavery. Yeah, you can drive at 16, get drafted at 18, drink at 21. Hope Vivek does not bring his upbringing values to the table. Sorry, Nash. Well, that's the interesting thing is that there's a weird aspect of this that I find completely contradictory to I mean, it's an illusion at this point, what the Republican conservative idea supposedly stands for, which is, that like that kind of bootstrapping individuality, you're a fucking human being that can, there are app millionaires who are under 25. And I'm sure Vivek or some of his friends know some of them. And yet they wouldn't want that person to vote. And there are a lot more of them than the ones that are under 18. How does Charlie Kirk feel about 25? I agree. Well, that's what I mean. Like he's over 25, isn't he? I don't know. I mean, he seems like one of those guys who like started that organization so he could hang out on campuses. But but a good portion of the people that are showing up at Turning Points USA at those events are definitely under 25. And Vivek is going to run on the idea that none of them should have the right to vote. Now, there might be a section of that group of people who are fine being activists, but don't want to have to show up to fucking vote. And on the Republican side, there's a bunch of them that don't trust voting anyways. So why, for the next 5 years, shit, Biden's probably going to be in office the whole time anyway, so who gives a shit, right? If I'm 18 or 20 at this point and I don't give a shit. I'm not going to do it anyways. If Trump's not on the bill, I'm not voting, and I like the sound of this guy, but if Trump's not there, I'm not going to go, right? There's tons of that. Their parents aren't, so why would they? So, no guests today, but did you watch Pillow Guy's symposium? Only chunks of it, because it was fucking dull. Like they rushed through so much of this shit, and a lot of it, I'm going to show you later today, because we were going to do part of it yesterday, but it's the whole fucking, like, he talks for like 50 fucking minutes at the top of this thing. But his base argument was, I'm not going to show you any new evidence. Of course you're not, asshole. You don't even have old evidence. You don't have any evidence. And I keep having this thought, this phrase stuck in my head from yesterday when we were looking at this James Comer clip where he kept saying, we have information that shows criminal activity. That would be evidence. So if you have evidence, you have to show evidence. But if you don't have evidence, you don't have information that shows criminal activity. Get the what? What a tap dance. I believe. Yes, it was a lot of I believe. I believe, and we sure, and we're going to keep looking, and I hope, and good Lord. I mean, I have to say, as annoying and upsetting and grotesque as his bullshit is, I do enjoy one aspect of it, and that is watching the hosts on Newsmax and RSBN and all these other things get increasingly frustrated at the fact that they keep ending up in cul-de-sacs with no streetlights. Will you just look at the map? No, I know where we are. I know where we are. Fuck. Okay, hold on. Shit. Okay, come on. God damn it. Will you just look at the map? I know where it is. I have seen no evidence that you know where it is, Charles. Shut the fuck up. Okay. It's right here. It's right here. Oh, God damn it. Hold on. Okay, shit. Anyways, like, that's what's happening. They have no idea what the address is. They don't even know if the fucking house is there. They're just driving around in a fucking neighborhood, pulling into everybody's driveway and then backing out again. That's it. It's so stupid. And in the back seat is fucking, Rob Shit and all these other people and Greg Kelly. And they're all just like, when are we there yet? They're literally, all of them are just going, are we there yet? Yeah, it's driving in circles. It's a bit like in European Vacation. Look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament. I cannot get left. So Tor confused. It happens. You have trouble understanding how Discord works? No, 250K ohm. It's very weird, but it's valuable and it has some cool stuff in it. So please, if you're a Patreon, please make good use of it because it costs money to keep it going. And yeah, so please, yeah, make best use of it, because you can also get into other. If you're on Discord, you can get into other Discord groups, and from that, there's all kinds of. If a lot of times, the best part about it is if you have a piece of software you use for work, or you have a any kind of tech stuff that you deal with on the regular, they have a Discord group for it. You can go in there and go, "What the fuck?" and it's really helpful. Lindell said they didn't actually have any new evidence. He's grifting for his election organization. It was worse than that. He didn't say they don't actually have any new evidence. He said, "I've shown you all the evidence. I don't need to show you any more evidence." That part's we put that behind us. Yeah, it's just ugh. It's just like it's so lame. It's like one of those things where like, and he didn't start. He hedged that a little bit. I will say we saw it in a couple of the videos last week. He hedged, or a week before last, he hedged a little bit that he was not going to be presenting, quote, new evidence at the thing. But not that he wasn't going to really produce evidence at all. He, honest to God, like he was, there were a bunch of people there who went, he's like, we're not going to show any of that new evidence today, and a bunch of them just deflated immediately. Like they just went. And I think the best example is Rob Schitt on Newsmax yesterday. We're looking at this long sigh when he's talking to James Comer. We're looking at this stuff. You're like, okay, he's done. They're done. And there is no there. Okay, the only reason the Hunter Biden bullshit exists for Comer and Jim Jordan and that crowd is so that they got a list of people that they want to call as witnesses. They sit on them until Trump gets indicted or another piece of evidence comes, because they know the other shoe is going to drop. So right before that shoe drops or right after, they release, they go, we're going to talk to Devin Archer now. We're going to talk to, Shemp Biden now or whatever. We're going to call that. We're going to subpoena them. And then they make a big noise about it for 3 days around whenever Trump hits real legal jeopardy. That's all it is. It's a tit for tat. And those of us, I think many of you, I'm just saying, in a tit for tat, one is preferable to the other. I have no interest in tat whatsoever. If someone says, would you? No, I will not trade. Thank you very much. Keep your tat. I'm very happy with what I have right here. No, you can. So in an attempted tit for tat, they are all tat. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. I don't know where that analogy came from, but I like it, and I'm sticking by it. See, this is why I love the morning show, because it may take us a while to get there, but we will. Yes, Shemp Biden 2028. So there you go. So-called Pastor Locke destroyed a Barbie house. Yeah, I know, but like the fucking performative bullshit is hilarious. All right, now I wanted to show you one other thing, which I thought was fascinating. You might see this. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, there is a, you know me and my China fixation we've had over the years as a Sinophiliac, as a Sinophile, as a lover of all things Chinese as far as culture, love the people. Government I hate because of how they're treating the people. And anyways, they're in deep shit right now. It's just bad. On top of that, there was for a long time when and part of the backstory around what I'm gonna show you right here is this competitive window that China was with the United States in terms of, if we set up an Amazon, they wanted an equivalent. Anything that we would set up, they would have an equivalent. And to the point where it was so bad that when the United States unveiled their new old MRAPs, and I will say for the record that a lot of when we unveil a military thing in the United States, it's 2 generations old. That's how we work. That's how you always work. Yeah, this is the Temu kind of thing. You'll see it's related to that, but it's much more specific because it's a big step. That when Amazon started to take off, and Amazon, quite frankly, about half of what is sold on Amazon is Chinese sellers or are what's called drop shippers. And a ton of people, you can look all over YouTube and you'll see these people who made a living, made millions of dollars being drop shippers, which is effectively just set up your own Amazon account, set up products, or find a supplier that makes those things and either have them slap your name on it or just buy them outright. And they'll ship them. You take the orders and then you order it from them and then they ship it directly. Because China has benefited from this thing where they don't, because of our trade rules with them and us trying to help them out and them being a developing nation and them getting favored nations, status and all that, they can ship for free. People in Mexico, not necessarily. People in Canada can't. People across the United States can't. But you can ship something from China for free. And so that became, and they even got, the Chinese government was even able to support it past the line. We'll talk about that in a moment too, because there's no surprise Trump's not doing his thing on Monday. Boo, chicken shit. Anyways, so China, has their own version of Amazon, which is Alibaba. And Alibaba is run by a guy named Jack Ma, or was. And Jack Ma was one of the success stories of Chinese billionaires. Look, we can make billionaires too. This guy is, really smart, and he's created this whole system. And his whole, he's got multiple companies, but his biggest, most successful one is Alibaba. And Alibaba is, which is such a strange, and the idea they took the name, Temu we'll get to in a second. That's the government version of it. Basically, that's what happened, is that the government basically took the structure of Alibaba and turned it into Temu, and now they're using it to dump materials onto so all this backed up product that nobody wants in China, they're having a fire sale or a flood sale, arguably. Anyways, Alibaba got its name because the idea is that all you have to do is rub the lamp and magically whatever you want appears. So that was where they got it. Yeah, Temu is garbage. It's Wish on a budget. Anyways, so one of the things that there was an offshoot of Alibaba called AliExpress. And I even have the app on my phone because I've had it, it's been around for a long time. And they moved the headquarters of Alibaba, that was kind of overseeing the foreign headquarters of AliExpress to Russia not too long ago, a couple years ago, I think. Anyways, this is news out of, let me show you this real quick. This is news out of Ukraine. And it's a big deal. Let me go to, let's see, I have to click this off, right? Yeah. Should this do it? Yeah, there we go. The National Agency for the Prevention of Corruption, which is the organization that, Trump is mad exists in Ukraine, has added the Chinese group of companies Alibaba Group Holding Limited to the list of international sponsors of war. The group of companies Alibaba Group Holding Limited includes Cloud Intelligence Group, Taobao. Taobao's their eBay, and it's fucked up. Taobao is one of those situations where occasionally you find kids for sale. I'm not kidding. No pun intended. Local Services Group, AMAP, Global Digital Business Group, Sanyao Smart Logistics, Digital Media and Entertainment Group, which is Youku and Alibaba Pictures, which is where they make their movie and their fake YouTube. Youku, essentially. Which, yeah. In particular, attention was drawn to the online commerce platform AliExpress, which is operated by the Russian subsidiary of Alibaba LLC, Alibaba.com RU. According to the NACP website, as of 2023, the company continues to do business in Russia, providing an international platform for the sale of foreign goods. The profit of Alibaba.com amounted to 16.3 billion rubles, about $160 million. In April 2023, Reuters reported that Chinese company Yuzhou Nova purchased at least 3,220 tons of copper alloy for a total of 7.4 million from the Debalstev metallurgical engineering plant controlled by the Russians between October 8, 2022 and March 24, 2023. According to customs, the copper alloy was shipped from the plant through part of Novorossiysk. The company used the copper exported from the occupied territories to produce goods. They're taking it out of the Donbass. To to produce goods that it sells on Alibaba's platforms. It is worth noting that Alibaba also resorts to censoring Ukrainian content on its platforms related to the Russian war. In March 2022, Alibaba blocked the profile of a Ukrainian streamer who had more than 268,000 subscribers on AliExpress for posting about the war. At the same time, pro-Russian posts on the platform are not deleted. Yeah, TikTok. Yeah, exactly. Again, don't do TikTok. Stay off TikTok. Fuck TikTok. Period. End of story. Go to Snapchat. Go to, I don't know. Somebody needs to kickstart Vine again. But yeah. And I mean, how long before we find out that Vine was basically bought out and subverted, and that Snapchat's position was subverted by Douyin, or by ByteDance, who owns TikTok and Douyin. Yeah, go to do YouTube stories, do Facebook Reels. Because as bad as, the privacy issues are with American social media, you at least have to check a box that says you're okay with it. You don't have that choice with these sources, if that makes sense. Okay. Anyways, that was an enormous story. Now, the other one is, let's see if I can, so can I also show you can I have a little bit, just point of privilege? Because we've had some contentious talks this morning. I know my cop talk always bugs people because they're assholes. And don't get me wrong. Just because if I call you an asshole, don't get upset. Assholes are useful, just for only one thing. But anyways, well, 3. Sorry. 4. I mean, I'm not including medical stuff. Anyways, all right. So, I do get to brag occasionally on one particular area, which is when they other news sources come back around. Like when news sources finally catch up to what I've been telling you guys for a while, and it's not like there's a what a shitty take. I know, I understand. You know how I will. How do I put this in a way that's okay? A lot of the times when I bring up a sort of controversial take on economic or geopolitical, especially news, especially when I'm talking about China in particular, because of my awareness there, or the Saudis and how much oil they have, and the Russians and the status of their economy and all this stuff, where there's a certain amount of pushback from a group of people, or there's some wishful thinking going on the sort of remnants of people who invested, especially people who invest internationally. They might even want to just bullshit their way through and pretend everything's hunky-dory, or not as bad as I'm saying there is, because they want to get out. When Hal said that, what was your first thought? I agree. It tells us a lot about you as a person, and I'm curious. Did you see Musk wants to remove the block feature except for DMs? Well, yeah, because it closes down traffic. And he just wants blind traffic because he wants you to be subject to all ads, and the ads are in people's feeds. And if you can block those, it's just gross. He's collapsing the place. Who gives a shit? Anyways, point is, when I'm right about something, I stick to it. And eventually, like there is no Hunter Biden laptop, and the legal duress of that Rudy Giuliani has created by his shitty chain of evidence behavior. I'm right about that, and I will stay correct about that, and we can ride this out as long as you fucking want, and there can be ebbs and flows in what people think, and people can go, but they posted this thing online. You're like, I don't give a shit. I'll show you. There's no metadata. You can't even that's an edited video. It doesn't matter. The way you fake shit is you have some real. That's how it works. All cons are like broken clocks. They have to be right, 2 times a day. Bigfoot has the laptop today, officially, I think. All right, so, and hi, Moms Russo, big hug. We'll get to that in a second. But this is an article, I started paying attention to like Bloomberg and Market Watch and all this stuff because I loved how the Republicans were all about how Biden's going to wreck the economy, and the stock market's going to take a shit, and others, and oil's going to be $200 a barrel, and blah 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 blah. And I was like, not going to happen. And yet, at the same time, as somebody who, I'm not an economist, I wouldn't dedicate my life to that field, just naturally, but I'm not ignorant, and I can certainly look at a combination of stories and start going, okay, this is a trend in a belief system, and if economics is large, is part mythology and like half mythology and half material, then you can see the way the wind is blowing, and that's how people become stock traders and all that kind of stuff and make a lot of money, because they actually are playing the market, not the reality, right? How many businesses, and I always hate this is the part that annoys me about the stock market, how many businesses have you ever seen where the stock price goes down because the profit they made was less than expected? They made a profit. They're growing. They're just not doing it fast enough. Okay, so you're not an investor. You're a squatter. You sit on this stuff and you try to you're farming fees and dividends off of companies, but you don't give a fuck about the company. So stop saying you invest in stocks or you invest in the stock market. You do no such thing. That's like saying I invest in trolley cars because I get on one at one corner and get off of two blocks later. Does that make sense? Spoony Biden. So, all right. Does it make sense? Yeah, shorting, shit like that. Hate it. All right. But there are areas where when they finally come around, sometimes they start tiptoeing. You don't notice that? They kind of like, well, it's not as bad as Hal is saying, but it's, it's not good. I'll give you that. It's not good. It's not optimal. It'll be better if, that conversation, which we see all the fucking time. I show you that language all the time. This is, and kudos, by the way, to the China show guys for, I'm sure they feel the exact same way. I'm certain that they see these stories show up in what is effectively the legacy or mainstream media, because it's finally percolating up to being a top story, even though it was already a top story. It just took a while for people to move the other top stories out of the way or recognize just how big this is. This is from Bloomberg. This is, and it's from a part of Bloomberg they call, quote, the big take. Okay, here we go. China's abandoned, obsolete electric cars are piling up in cities. Now, I showed you guys video and pictures of this shit weeks ago. We talked about the ghost city problem and tofu drag, the shitty construction issue that they have. And I have to say, one of the things that pisses me off the most about this is like, fucking just mail these cars someplace. Don't let them sit there and rot. If you can't sell them, it's like, you ever look at in like impoverished countries or in refugee camps or that kind of stuff, how many fucking sports teams shirts there are, and how like the losing team, the team that loses the Super Bowl, occasionally you'll see t-shirts that say, in Africa, they'll, at some of the refugee camps around Chad or whatever, I was watching this one thing, and this guy was wearing a shirt that gave the opposite results of the Super Bowl, because nobody knows who's going to win. They both want to sell their shirts right away, so they both print shirts. If it's the Colts against the Cowboys, they make Cowboys beat the Colts and Colts beat the Cowboys shirts, and then they wait. And if the odds are in one direction or the other, they'll make a lot more shirts of one, but they'll still have just in case. And those will be even more expensive because, holy shit, nobody thought the Colts would be the guy, or whatever. I don't know what the fight would be between those two teams. Don't get sports on me, okay? But the point is, they make both. And then they take the one that lost and they give them away. They end up overseas. They end up as, like, going to like aid programs and that stuff, because they don't waste the shirts. They give them to impoverished countries and stuff like that. So you'll see people in countries wearing like products that no longer exist. You'll see them wearing a lot of, and it's a lot of soccer shit too. you'll see a lot of losing soccer teams don't sell as many shirts, right? Because they lost, so they have a lot of excess stuff, so they donate it and write it off, which is fine. That's okay, good. That's I guess that's best case scenario. That's how you do it. Yeah, 1877 cars for kids, right? China should just do that. China, it's a great write off. Just do, one. Let's see, the old Chiba. Yeah, so Iba Chi cars for kids, right? So yeah, there's still shirts. I mean, even if you can read it and you're like, they lost. What the fuck? You can wear it inside out. Doesn't matter. It's great. The grass is taller than the car. Yeah, that's the dead giveaway, I think. Right. Does that include the defendant 45 winning 2022? No, because there'll always be some loser over here who will wear that fucking shirt. Trump won. Like, literally. So, all right. Karen, you had Hunter Biden's laptop, but you misplaced it. Bigfoot has it right now. Bigfoot has the laptop. He's got some homework to do. So, that said, let's take a look at this. China's abandoned, obsolete electric cars are piling up in cities. Do you know how bad it has to get before fucking Bloomberg writes an article about this at all, much less making it, quote, the big take? So check this out. All right. I know you did your turn, sir. Okay. Look at this shit. What a fucking waste. Now, the guys on the China show, Lao I-86 and Serpent ZA, have both pointed out, or as a lot of us Americans call them, Serpent ZA, Serpenza. A lot of, he's South African. And by the way, you're not wrong. Serpent ZA sounds exactly like Orson Bean in The Hobbit. So, same voice, which is not a bad thing. It's a great speaking voice. Anyways, who you calling Bigfoot? Don't get sensitive. Well, get a little sensitive. Probably on the bottom of your feet because there's a lot. You got more surface area. All right. Anyways, you guys have the same reaction that I do, which is like, what a fucking waste. This is so goddamn sad. They're white because they were for ride sharing programs, and that's the base coat, and then you could do something else over top of them, whatever. Some blue ones, like, and these are for ride sharing companies that were created because nobody's gonna own a car. You were gonna, zip car it. Now, they have zip cars in San Francisco where you can sign up for this thing and it'll show you where the nearest car is. And then you get in it, you drive it to where you need to, and then you park it and you just leave it there. Or you can drive it back home if you want to, if it's still there when you come back. But you can reserve a car and then you pick it up, just like the bike systems and all that shit. And in a city like New York or to some degree, San Francisco, where there's enough public transportation and there's enough taxis and some people still have cars. There's a mid-zone of people who might not be there, who are new to it or whatever, this might fit a very narrow window of people, but it'll never be the mass. It'll never be the main function. You'll never have zip cars as a concept take over all of San Francisco or whatever. And the reason is Oakland and Cupertino and San Jose and fucking Napa Valley and all that shit, because people want to be able to drive out that far, and you can't drop off a zip car in a city system for that then you get into car rental. It's, whatever. Anyways, so this article is two birds. Yeah. So it's like, what the fuck? So here's the other thing. This is one of the details about this, beyond the fact that these are obsolete electric cars piling up in cities. The subsidy-fueled boom helped China into an electric car, build them into an electric car giant, but left weed-infested lots across the nation brimming with unwanted battery-powered vehicles. The amount of like lithium and cobalt and all that shit that's using this is just sitting there rotting, and then they're right next to water. That part bothers me as well. On top of this, here's the big thing that you need to know about these cars, the ones you're looking at right now. They are all registered as if they were sold. It would be one thing if China had a production problem because they're a communist country and they just make shit and, oh shit, we made more than we need, but we're not going to give them away because we have issues with our trade partners and fuck you and whatever. So we're just going to park them and let them rot in case we need them later, or we'll sign a bunch of mechanics. Look at the construction going on. No, you don't see construction going on. You see idle construction. Let's be abundantly clear. You're seeing idle construction. You're not seeing those cranes moving. You're not seeing stuff moving around them. You're not even seeing people around. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of that green netting outside of it to show that nobody's in there working. That was my experience when I was in China. I'm like, oh my God, they should change the national animal from the panda to the crane, because there's more cranes fucking here than anything else. And then, but then I would come back, a couple months later, and the project hadn't moved forward at all, and there never had been anybody there. Not Billy Idol construction. Yeah. Anyways, it's very weird. Yes, it's all for show. It is, and it's all for artificial financial stimulus to keep their fake economy looking not just strong or resilient or all the kind of stuff that a normal government or normal economic minister would want to be able to say about your particular economy in a country. It's not to do that. It's to scare the fuck out of other countries. It is an offensive measure. And that's why it's done as slapdash as it is. Anyways, point is, if they were just making these cars and dumping them, it'd be one thing, because they could say that their production capacity was very high. And they could tell the world, we make a shit ton of electric cars. And the rest of the world would go, cool, who's buying them? And crickets. And so, to fix that, that response was, well, we do this giant rideshare thing. We have these companies that do rideshare, and they buy the electric cars, and people can use whatever car they want, and they can jump in a car and use it, and then they leave it behind. And then that's where most of them are going. But a lot of people are buying them because we're printing millionaires every day, and we got a lot of these things. And so they go, well, how come auto registrations? Do you register those cars? Do rideshare programs like that have to do normal registration, or are they all under one number or something? And they go, oh no, they are all individually bought. But it's like a co-op company. So you buy a car and then it goes to this rideshare and you get a slice of the investment. It's one of the ways we allow people to invest. It's not. It's complete horseshit. But all of these cars are registered to some rando person who may or may not even be alive or have existed in the first fucking place. But because it checks 3 boxes, which is it was manufactured in China, it was sold in China, and it is registered to a person in China, according to the World Bank and the IMF and economists all over the world, that is a car that goes in the stack of China made an electric car and sold it to someone, and that sale was successful. And that car, as far as we know, is being an automobile right now, doing all the things that automobiles do, which is take you to and from work, take you to and from entertainment, take all that shit. But they ain't. They register it to a fake name or a dead person, or like I said, a person that never lived, and then they fucking park it, and it rots. And again, the fact that these are parked right next to the water is just, that's what makes it dumber. So, all right, let's look at this real quick. I rant over, sort of. On the outskirts of the Chinese city of Hangzhou, a small, dilapidated temple overlooks a graveyard of sorts, a series of fields where hundreds upon hundreds of electric cars have been abandoned among weeds and garbage. Similar pools of unwanted battery-powered vehicles have sprouted up in at least half a dozen cities across China. By the way, part of this is not because people don't want electric cars or that they're not interested in having a car or any of that kind of stuff. It's because their batteries are death traps. And they've improved some, as you would have to, but a lot of them still catch fire, and it's scary and fucked up. And so people are like, nah, I'll walk. Though a few have been cleaned up in Hangzhou, because as soon as the aerial photographs came out, China came in there with fucking bulldozers and got rid of them, and they drove them out in the middle of nowhere on giant trucks and put them in the earth. What a fucking waste. Anyways, some cars have been left so long the plants are sprouting from their trunks. Others have discarded in such a hurry that fluffy toys still sit on their dashboards. Those came with the sale, by the way, just so you know. Those little you see them in the top of the pictures. There's like orange in the back, or they point that out. When you buy the car, it's like a family car, and with it you get a toy for the kids and and whatever. It's like a toaster, shit like that. If you start a bank account, those kind of things. It was a free treat or whatever. They just threw it in the car because they're like, and there's some of them are like emergency kits too. If you look at the up close, but that's what they're talking about. God damn, this is stupid. This time, the cars were likely deserted after the ride-hailing companies that owned them failed, or because they were about to become obsolete. As automakers rolled out EV after EV with better features and longer driving ranges, they're a striking representation of the excess and waste that can happen when capital floods into a burgeoning industry. No, this is not capital flooding into a burgeoning industry. This is fake money. This isn't genuine investment. This is the Chinese government creating basically blimps and saying they're moons. And perhaps also an odd monument to the seismic progress in electric transportation over the last few years. About a decade ago, it wouldn't be for ride sharing because ride sharing is only for short trips. About a decade ago, encouraged by government subsidies, hundreds of automakers across China, both established players and startups, waded into electric car manufacturing. They turned out huge numbers of early-stage EVs, relatively no-frills cars whose batteries in some instances could only run for about 100 kilometers, 62 miles on a charge. By the way, that was fairly common in the United States. So you could drop these around college campuses in the United States. Everybody would have a fucking car and be able to go everywhere they need while they're in college. It's a college car. But nobody's going to college, so there we go. Wait till I show you the next pile. Like they couldn't fucking see this shit coming. These are the electric bicycles that were going to be the same thing. These are electric bicycles for the rideshare programs over there, where you rent one of the bikes and you ride it around town, then you park it and it charges up and blah blah blah. Honest to God, like I have this bizarre desire to like go over there with two giant fucking trucks, load them on a boat and go, hey, we'll clear this out. We'll just take all this. Just sell it to me for $1 and we'll just take it the fuck out of here and hand it out. Just fucking like, even if you don't have chargers, you could still pedal these fucking things. So hand them out across South America, hand them out across Africa. Again, if China's trying to make such a like inroads in Africa, I swear to God, one of the easiest things they could do is give out bicycles in Africa, because there are areas of Africa where simply having a bicycle would be life-changing. Never mind an electric bike that you can charge with a with a solar panel, which allegedly they have a lot of old shitty solar panels for charging cell phones that would charge one of these things in 24 hours. And you still pedal the goddamn thing. All right. Demand helped juice an industry that has grown exponentially ever since. No, it has not. If the industry grew exponentially and the demand was helping it, they wouldn't have all this leftover shit. It's all fake. It was always all fake. Look at this. China is now the world leader in clean cars, producing around 6 million EVs and plug-in hybrids last year, are almost 1 in every 3 new cars sold domestically. It accounts for 60% of the world's current electric fleet and has the most expensive EV charging infrastructure on Earth, also built with government support. Yeah. What the fuck are you talking about? No, they aren't. By the way, this is just the abandoned cars that were for the rideshare ones. They subsidized sales to private people when these first came out as well, and there's just as many of those abandoned or disused, or they've taken them apart and they're just using the electric motor. Let me tell you something too. The electric motor in an electric car is usually pretty fucking powerful. That's why that's the fun part of riding an electric car. Even with a short range, it's going to have incredible torque because of the electric engine, because it doesn't have to wait for the gas to explode and the piston to be thrown across. It can just whoop and off you go. And those engines can be pilfered and turned into a lot of stuff. So I would not be shocked. I'm just going to say, if I was Russia, I would say, give me all those dead cars. Right? Because you could pilfer the engine out of them and use it for a myriad of manufacturing uses, for military uses and the like. And then the chips that are in them are better than the washing machine chips that they would have in theory. Yeah, EV torque converters are fucking amazing. Yes, agreed. This is one of those situations where you ever see those stories about like a kid in Africa who lives in basically a refugee camp, but has basically built a radio like fucking MacGyver out of like broken, like some popsicle sticks and some bubble gum and some gum wrappers. You ever seen one of those kids and you're like, this fucking kid, he made a water purification system of his own. He just found some gravel. He got some charcoal from this thing. He took some briquettes. He grinded it down. They did the thing, and he put a filtering system on it. He made clean water. He's been purifying water for the camp, and he's 9 years old. You ever see those kids? They're fucking amazing and beautiful, and you're like, can we give the kid a scholarship, and then he can return and even build on that? Right? It'd be great. Okay. Maybe give that kid one of these. Can you imagine? Right. Yeah, I get aggravated. I get so aggravated. There's the bicycles again. There's one of the cars. That looks good. So, sorry, tell me again how the pools of unwanted battery-powered cars are residue from rapid consolidation in the ride-hailing industry. That is the monopolization caused by the Chinese government. The CCP took all the little upstarts and either paid off the person to fuck off and bought their stuff and then just shelved it, or put it out of business. Because here's the problem. If you let a bunch of upstarts start, and these guys are starting business, I'm gonna start my own EV company. There's a big market, and in Hebei, we don't have really a Hebei car, and people get very, they like personalized relationships with their stuff. And so we desperately, want a Hebei EV. So I'm going to make one. And they get together with their buddies, and they went to school, and they engineer one, and they create it, and it's great, and they're for it. And then it doesn't sell, because the illusion they were selling it into, that they were sold by their government, that the economy was a lot better than they said it was, means that there is not an audience for it. There is not a customer base. And so they don't sell. And so it's embarrassing. And so that company fails. And then this other startup fails for the exact same fucking reason, the exact same reason. And then the government can subsidize the bigger ones for a little while. But if they convert because the government is telling them to, and they don't actually sell any, so what do? Before those companies can fail, you pre-fail them. You buy them up and crash them. That's what the Chinese government does. Okay. The graveyards are a troubling consequence of that consolidation. Not only are these sites an eyesore, getting rid of our EVs so quickly reduces their climate benefit, considering they're more emissions intensive to build and only produce an advantage over combustion cars after a few years. Right. They're so close to it. They're so close to going, oh, wait a minute. I've been an asshole this whole time. It's a tough realization to make. Right. And it's no different with the current batch. The chat is giving me phone angst. I'm sorry, is there too much on there? There's a lot of people. By the way, like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show if you want me to keep doing this. I try to catch people up on stuff. This is not the news you're going to get anywhere else with this kind of depth. Anyways, according to local media reports, the government of Hangzhou has vowed to dispose of the cars, which started to accumulate in 2019. But when Bloomberg News visited late last month, reporters uncovered several sites filled with abandoned EVs in the city's Yuhang and Westlake districts after scouring satellite images and hacking through overgrown dirt paths. Good on you, Bloomberg, Fucking Bloomberg reporters hacking through overgrown dirt paths. I'm impressed. So here's another. I'm gonna move this up because this is where they transfer into this. Okay, this is another one of those areas. In one field, more than 200 white cars, mainly battery electric, compact, manufactured by Chongqing Chang'an Automobile Company. Chongqing, by the way, is a city I have talked about a bunch, which is one of the biggest in the country. It was the capital of China when the Japanese took over. It is in the western part of the country, and the analogy I always make about the Japanese invasion and the movement of the capital from Beijing, the central government being Beijing and Nanjing, which is north capital, Bei north, Nan south. Okay, Beijing and Nanjing, they had to retreat all the way to Chongqing to run the actual country, which is the equivalent of imagine if the Germans attacked us on the East Coast and Washington, D.C., everybody in Washington, D.C. had to flee to Denver, and the U.S. government was run out of Denver for 4 years. Imagine that in your history. Just plug that into your... Yeah. Okay. And it's supposedly a city of 35 million people, which is bigger than the entire population of Australia. And yet, ladies and gentlemen, I was able to walk around their shopping district, which is the place where everybody buys everything, and with my arms out like this and not touch anybody because there was enough room. That's ridiculous. That's when I have to say, Chongqing was one of the first places where like my suspicions started to take root. Where I was like, nah, that's just me for a while. And then after a while, I was like, nah, that's fucked up. What is happening? We were there 3 times in one day, morning, evening, and night to film the place, and nothing. Like, there were people nowhere near the volume. This is reassuring. Holy shit. This looks like something out of fucking Planet of the Apes. You charged it up! You bastards! All had blue plates indicating that they were made and registered before December 2017 when Hangzhou switched to green plates for new energy vehicles. Registration stickers showed that some would have been running on roads until as recently as 2021. At different site near a river and along a deserted tram track, around 1,000 EVs sat gathering dust. Some had stickers from Lindell, a ride-sharing company which shut down earlier this year. Others bore branding that indicated they belonged to Cao Chuxing, a ride-hailing service owned by Hangzhou Yuxing Technology Company. Okay. The vehicles in this location were mainly produced by Chang'an, Shijiang, Geely. I don't know if that's the Geely Holding is another name. That's somebody else. That's like an anglicized name. Working with that. And Dongfeng Motor Group, Nissan Motor Company's joint venture partner with China. That's because those were actually like bought functioning. That's the saddest part because these are actually decent ones. Some cars were relatively new with green plates and stickers on their windows reminding passengers to wear a mask to protect against COVID-19. Empty water bottles littered the back seats of others. Yeah, by the guys who were fucking driving them someplace. Before Tesla came to China and began making cars from its factory in Shanghai in 2020, most EVs being produced in the world's second biggest economy were small and low quality. They were hardly appealing to consumers faced with a plethora of good-looking combustion engine cars. To kickstart EV adoption, the government in the late 2000s began offering rebates as much as 60,000 yuan, 8,400 per vehicle. That's more than the United States does per vehicle, and restricting the ownership of gasoline cars in several major cities. Automakers backed or founded several ride-hailing startups. And by the way, this is with government money to pretend the cars were going someplace. Anyways, if you want to read this article, it's fucking depressing in terms of this. Beijing began slashing national subsidies for all electric car purchases in 2019. Many ride-hailing companies were unprepared for the policy change. Again, Xi Jinping, top of his game. He couldn't find somebody in Hollywood with this kind of... So they just cut them, and then now everything is... They created the problem, and then they just hamstring it or kneecap their own fucking economy all the time. Many ride-hailing companies were unprepared for the policy change, which severely affected their cash flow. Those players couldn't survive. Now, by the way, that you could say that's an accident or just idiocy. It might have been a ploy, but fucking hell. The EV graveyards first started to draw public attention later that year when internet users and local media reported on the phenomenon. These are just the batteries, by the way. These are the spent batteries. These are the undercarriages of a bunch of these fucking cars. They just ditched the rest of them. They pulped them or somebody made off with them. And that's see the stickers on the window? That says that they were driven. I call bullshit. Because I'm here to tell you that I do not doubt for a second that because of the local government financing vehicles, the LGFVs that are the debt bomb that is going on in China to justify the money coming into the city or saying that they have as much activity as they do, they will lie about a ton of stuff and they can hide it in a bunch of ways. And one of the ways you do it is by going, we got a lot of cars in the road. We can show, look at all the car registrations. And you go, what were the stickers printed? Where are they? Where do you keep your stickers? And then you open the fucking locker and it's full of the stickers because they never went anywhere. So you pay some dude to go out there and go on every car. It's just so stupid. Oh God. So, and yeah. So, like that in and of itself, when this story comes out on, thank you CSL. By the way, I see him popping into the Discord right now. It's very exciting. She right out of Central Casting, so smart, top of his game. I like guys, that part just drives me mad. I tell you, mad. You see. Now there is another story I want to get. Well, there's a couple of these. Trump ditched his. Where is it? Let's see if I can find this. Yeah. Let's see if I can find the actual post. There it is. There we go. This is Rava. Rava. Trump chickened out. Rather than releasing the report on the radiant stolen Georgia 2020 presidential election on Monday, my lawyers would prefer putting this, I believe, irrefutable and overwhelming. Notice how he puts I believe in there. This is part of his defense. His lawyers are saying, look, they have to prove you knew it wasn't rigged and stolen and you're just lying. So everywhere you say you have to put in I believe. They wrote this for him. Irrefutable and overwhelming evidence of election fraud and irregularities, including my diaper, and formal legal filings as we fight to dismiss this disgraceful indictment by a publicity and campaign finance seeking DA. Campaign finance seeking DA. I know he's like trying to raise money for campaigning on, but again, dude, you do realize that if people can campaign on this and it's a good moneymaker for them, that's not a good sign for you. Because here's the thing. If she goes after you, just because she said she would, whether she is successful or not, she's going to get the same money and support that she got running the first time. If she thinks she's got a case against you and she can actually win, and that means she's going to get more campaign finance, more people are going to jump on board, right? More people are going to want to support her campaign. That's bad for you, asshat. That means the group of people who fucking hates you is growing. And it is. It definitely is. Who sadly presides over a record-breaking murder and violent crime area, Atlanta. Therefore, the news conference is no longer necessary. I love this. Therefore, I do so proclaim, I, King Fart Knocker of the great Fart Knocker tradition of Florida, I, Florida man, do hereby and justly declare thee Sir Dipshit. Therefore, the news conference is no longer necessary. You wussed out. Stop it. It's like his whole thing, like Reagan wouldn't debate Reagan was still in office, fuckhead. I'm dead serious. When Reagan ran again, one of the reasons why he didn't do primary debates is because he was still president. You got plenty of time, asshole. You lost the second time. One would argue. One might think that perhaps you might have some ground to make up, considering you only have 50% of your fucking party. Also, we pointed out that since Fani Willis has taken over, there's been a 61% drop in violent crime in the area. And a lot of the spike had to do with COVID and masks. And the kind of people that wear masks to commit crimes were like, oh, fuck, everybody gets to wear a mask. They'll never be able to pick me out of a lineup. Reasonable doubt, here I come. Fucking, Therefore, the news conference is no longer necessary. Oh, what a dipshit. And the other story I find very interesting is that Rudy Giuliani, there's this big story came out. Where is it? So I think they wrote this up in. Oh, this was on Lawrence O'Donnell's show. But Giuliani, couple of things. One, you will not be able to move me on my assertion / premise / deeply held belief that Rudy Giuliani's job and part of his ascension to power as mayor of New York and the people that supported him in doing it was to broom the Italian mobs out so the Russians and the Chinese could move in. And that led to him playing footsie with all kinds of, scary, fucked up people post mayorship and them pushing him to maybe be president one day, all that. It's all horseshit. Meanwhile, there's a story in the Daily Beast. Hold on one second. Daily Beast is running a story where they spoke to the people behind. Here it is. This is. I mean, you got to give them points for swinging. Daily Beast. Rudy's RICO origin story is as fake as his hair color. Stretches the truth. They're so adorable. They got this kind of Daily Show secondary title thing that they're always doing. It's just cute. Sometimes it takes work. Look, they have to do it for every story. I do it every day, and I run out of titles sometimes simply because I'm dealing with the same fucking zombie lies. But he made this case that using RICO to go after the mob was his idea. This is what he's been telling people for a long time. And people let it slide. Yeah, for nearly 4 decades, Giuliani has claimed it was his idea to use RICO to prosecute 11 members of the New York 5 crime families in 1985 after crime boss Joe Bonanno published a memoir that described the workings of the mafia. I dreamed up the tactic, Giuliani wrote in his 2002 book, Leadership. Yeah, Leadership. His show's called Common Sense. I fucking hate when assholes like this take words that we all use and need and put a fucking flag in them. Luckily, it doesn't work because he's an idiot, but whatever. I revealed that Bonanno's description of how families were organized provided a roadmap to precisely what the RICO statute was designed to combat. As soon as I became a U.S. attorney, I was able to hoist Bonanno by his literary petard. But the legal eminence who actually drafted the RICO statute and a former top New York State organized crime prosecutor tell the Daily Beast that is not how it went down at all. Their version suggests an added irony to the Georgia indictment that numerous lies that Giuliani is accused of perpetrating to keep Donald Trump in office were superseded by a bogus origin story. As described in the book Giuliani, The Rise and Tragic Fall of America's Mayor, Ron Goldstock of the New York State Organized Crime Task Force maintains he took the idea of using RICO against La Cosa Nostra to Giuliani 2 months after he became a U.S. attorney in Manhattan. Giuliani has denied that, and the conflicting accounts have stood as a he said situation. But G. Robert Blakey backs up Goldstock's version of events. Blakey, a law professor at the University of Notre Dame, who has also taught at Cornell University, drafted the Organized Crime Control Act of 1970 on a yellow legal pad. Title IX of that act was RICO. Giuliani falsely says he got the idea of using RICO against the mob himself because he read a biography by the head of one of the crime families. That was his story, Blakely, 87, told the Daily Beast this week. Blakely said he had not previously challenged Giuliani's account because what mattered most to him was that RICO had been used with devastating effect against the mafia. Giuliani used it in the commission case, Blakey said, referring to Giuliani's prosecution of members of the ruling commission of the 5 mob families who ran gangland at the time. If he says he invented it, fine. I don't care who invented it. If he wants to take credit for it, let him take credit for it. That's him. That's Blakey. Back in the day. But Blakey's attitude changed in the wake of the indictment when he heard Giuliani had been speaking as if he were the world's leading expert on the statute. When he said, as he's saying now, as a defendant with Trump, I know more about RICO than anybody. I think that stretches the truth. Except later on he says, they talk about it. Blakey had this case in mind when he wrote out the 9th subsection of the Organized Crime Control Act in the alcove of his living room in the Maryland house where he lived during a sabbatical from Notre Dame. The sidewalk was icy and cold, rainy morning when Blakey arrived at the Senate office building, where he was serving as chief counsel of a committee headed by Senator John McClellan, Democrat of Arkansas. When he met with McClellan, the senator went from one subsection to another, asking if each was essential. And I began saying, no, it's not. And I thought, what the hell is he doing? Blakey then realized that McClellan was trying to figure out which bits he could relinquish in political deals. Then he came to Title IX. He says, can I trade it? Blakey remembered. And I said, no, sir. This is where you will have to fall on your sword. This is Title IX. It's what this statute is all about. McClellan smiled, and RICO made the cut. On October 15th, 1970, the act passed with Title IX. Blakey moved on from Notre Dame to Cornell, where he founded the Cornell Institute on Organized Crime. Goldstock became director, and they set about broadening the reach of the RICO principle. I said, I'm going to have to talk to people in the states and see to it that they have statutes comparable to RICO, Blakey recalled. And I did, and there were about 30 among them in Georgia. And I think they meant is. I think that's a typo. Among them is Georgia. Oops. Sweaty old man. Blakey remained a mentor and a coach when Goldstock left in 1981 to head the New York State's Organized Crime Task Force. Goldstock says he went to Giuliani in 1983 to detail how he could use RICO in a case against the whole Mafia Commission. When Giuliani claimed credit for dreaming up the biggest Mafia prosecution of all time, Goldstock said little. I didn't need the accolades for it. I was happy that it was brought. Says this in the world of normal human beings, I will say that you can do some. There was a time when, and in my life, I like that it still occurs, where your charitable works should go unballyhooed. That you should just do them. That the hard work that you do, some of the work you do is just to get the work done. Is not for the credit of getting the work done. But in an age of information / fame, that acknowledgement is a currency in and of itself. And in some ways, it gives you protection in the future. People know you did one good thing. They might hesitate to believe something bad said against you in the future. That's a commonality in the modern, especially since social media took over. But it's, that's been around for a long time, but it definitely has gained, speed in the last 20 years. Look how far Rudy Giuliani has ridden the America's mayor bullshit. Yeah? So, Jesse Ventura does not have an opinion about RICO. I hung out with him for one after fucking noon in Baja. I'm down there. I have my feet in the sand, right? Because that's how you do it. I don't want any of this flip-flop non-fucking sense. You're either on the beach or you're not. So I'm sitting there in a chair that used to hold me. I sit in any beach chair, immediately collapses because I'm fucking-gantic. And I'm sitting there, in one hand, I've got a cold one. And by that, I mean a dead person. And in the other hand, I'm holding a fishing rod with the wire as taut as my ex-wife's hair during a night on the town. And leading straight out to the biggest fucking marlin you've ever seen in your goddamn life. right? And I'm pulling on this and I'm squeezing on this. And Rico walks up to me and asks me if I want to go for a bite. Listen, if you want to take me out to eat, mention food, because if I go for a bite, it could mean a myriad of things, right? Anyways, next thing I know, I wake up face down in the basement of the Denver airport. All right, sorry. Sometimes you guys trigger him, and sometimes you don't. And anytime my inner Jesse the Body Ventura comes out, I don't know where it's going to go. He's as bad as Ficus. Bless you. My girlfriend just sneezed. Anyways, we're getting near the end of the show. Today zipped by. Shit. And I still had my, you know what it is? It's because I get to railing on the China topic, and and then I lose viewers, but I gain, we lose girth, but we gain depth. Sure. Subscribe, by the way. Hit that thumbs up. Leave a little comment on one of my videos. Help boost us in the algo. The biggest thing I think. Here we go. This is the. This was in terms of the people who are in trouble that are along with Trump. Besides the fact that Giuliani is fucking broke right now, is that Giuliani and in this picture, I think this is the moment when he has just farted on Jenna Ellis. And I have to say, when you turn up the reds in something, it really does show the makeup line really bad. Obviously, this was when Trump was in town and he had Trump's hair and makeup people. This is just sprayed black splotch. How do you just go and that is Rudy Giuliani the one person who believed Ron Popeil's bullshit? Right? Yeah, no, I'm dead serious that she got COVID when he farted on her that day. I don't know if it was, we do know about, fecal nasal transfer being what it is. Anyways, there was a point in the argument that Giuliani made was that he goes, in response to the charges, this is this part right here. In response to the charges, Giuliani issued a statement suggesting that much of the information needed to know if an election was stolen, but didn't come about until months after he made the allegedly unlawful claims in an attempt to overthrow the 2020 election. O'Donnell said that it's interesting that Giuliani didn't say that to legislators in Georgia instead of, quote, telling them specifically the number of dead people that he lyingly claimed had voted. So he did list an absolute number, and he did say it was proof, and he did say it was, 80,000 that they knew of, right? That it was an enormous number, and it was a specific number, right? Literally, that's why what you're saying was a lie. You knew it then, you know it now. You didn't if they didn't actually find those fucking dead voters, which don't exist, recount after recount, cured ballots after cured fucking ballots, they never found anybody, like no underage voters, no dead people voted. What they tried to do, and this was a constant thing, was, and you'll see this a bunch, dead people on the voter rolls. I got news for you. People die sometimes, especially regular voters, between the time they register to vote and when they actually get a chance to vote. They don't end up voting. They're just on the rolls. And unless somebody specifically takes action, to remove them from the voter rolls, they will get a test ballot and their precinct information and all that stuff, but they can't show up and vote. And if anybody does show up and it's the easiest fucking thing to check, like, oh, this motherfucker died 2 years ago. Whoever was there and signed the paper, or if anybody recognized them or didn't recognize them, who came in and voted, is going to jail for at least 20 years. Ask the dude who murdered his wife, said she was missing, and used her ballot to vote for Trump. There aren't a lot of people willing to do that. Certainly not a lot of, quote, illegals, because if you want to talk about a way for a community of people who are living below the table to draw undue attention to themselves when there are literally millions of dollars to be made, finding one of them and attaching that one person to everybody else who may not have papers or undocumented in their area. Think about the industry of Republicans that exists right now to find somebody who voted illegally because they were not a citizen and that they were paid by the Democratic Party to do this. Find one of those, one fucking person. And how much, by the way, they would go, hey, you know what? Tell us who they are. We'll give you a $150,000 and you can leave the country and we'll pay your way home and give you seed money for you and your family that you could never have made in the United States. We'll give you $150K. Just name some names and we'll go get those people. If not, we'll take you in and then they'll all go down. You can do that too. And they can't find one fucking person to do that. One. They weren't able to. Not a one. There's millions of dollars to be made catching any of these people doing this. Of any number. 6 of them would have been national news on Fox for a fucking year. And they have found precisely none. And not for a lack of looking. But the fascinating part is that even if you believed it, you knew it would take a long time to, if there was a conspiracy that large, there would be arguably a control structure around that conspiracy equally as large. You'd almost have to police everybody one-to-one, or the punishment would have to be so draconian, or the blackmail so severe that these people would rather jump off a bridge or something than tell the truth, right? None of that has turned out to be true. None of it. Which is why, Mike Pillow's little gaggle this week, he's like, I've got no new evidence, because you didn't have evidence in the first fucking place. So, this part, and I don't know where. Let me see what his actual. Did they have the actual statement? Let me see. That bothers me when you have a link. Put the link to this. I don't just need his friggin' name. Let me find this real quick. The problem is he's made so many. Let's see. Trump and co-defendants expect to be booked at Fulton County Jail. 2020 election charges. That's a day ago. Former New York reacts to. Okay, this might be it. Yeah. Okay. So this is in another paper, but this is the actual statement. This is the full. This is an affront to American democracy and does permanent, irrevocable. Pardon me. I can speak. It's just. I'm over at 11 o'clock. My lips stop working. I know, that's not true. This is an affront to American democracy and does permanent, irrevocable. Fucking hell. Irrevocable. God damn. Because there's 2 ways to pronounce it, and they both clashed into each other. Irrevocable, yeah. Irrevocable. Harm to our justice system. It's just the next chapter in a book of lies with the purpose of framing President Donald Trump and anyone willing to take on the ruling regime. We don't have a ruling regime. We have an administration that was elected. Fuck off. They lied about Russian collusion. No, they did not. Well, unless he's talking about Bill Barr. They lied about Joe Biden's foreign bribery scheme. Maybe he's talking about Republicans now. What would be the foreign bribery scheme? Who was bribed? And they lied about Hunter's laptop hard drive proving 30 years of criminal activity. No, you just lied about the existence of a laptop. And I love this. These details Kids, again, this is a fucking statement from the dude. Hold on. Just look at this shit. Wait. Guys, look at this. I'm gonna drag this up here. Hold on so you can see it. They lied about Hunter Biden's laptop hard drive proving 30 years of criminal activity. Okay, couple things. One is the hard drive that they have, or that John Paul McIsaac had, was never in the laptop. Never, ever, not ever. The allegation is that somewhere in the order of like 3/4 of the capacity of the hard drive that was on the alleged laptop, which doesn't exist, was transferred to an SSD drive. And allegedly, John Paul McIsaac gave it to someone he believed to be Hunter Biden. Maybe. That story keeps changing all the time. Sometimes he gave it away, sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he came back and got it, sometimes he didn't. Those stories all over the fucking map. You wonder why the guy put out a fucking book. Why isn't he the darling of Fox News anymore? Because when you read his book, you're like, oh, this is all bullshit. But laptop, hard drive. Okay. Again, materially, little detail, but an important one. That hard drive never came from the laptop. However, one thing we do know is that Rudy Giuliani was carrying around a hard drive named laptop. And quite frankly, named Hunter Biden's laptop in his own emails. Hunter Biden's laptop hard drive. It was the title. Think of it as, you know how Fox News is fair and balanced moniker is ridiculous, but they get to use it all the time because the Supreme Court has ruled that trademarks do not have to be materially true. Coke is indeed not life. I'm sorry to disappoint those of you that, are concerned about those kind of things.
Diet Coke!
But it's not. And the same thing is that as long as it's a trademark, Fox does not indeed have to be fair and or balanced ever. As a matter of fact, you can have in our wonderful world of free speech, you can have an ironic trademark phrase. Because maybe the people at McDonald's don't really believe you're loving it or that you do deserve a break today. Maybe they don't think you deserve a break today, okay? But they don't have to believe it. They can just say it as long as it's got a little TM next to it. And by the way, they can say it anyways, but they also can say it and they make it so that only they can say it by putting the TM next to it as a trademark. I just if you need any more information about trademark law, please forward all of your emails to Ivanka Trump at trumporg.com, and she'll explain it to you. I mean, it's very complicated. It involves dinner and chocolate cake and Chinese officials or something. Anyways, it's so Rudy Giuliani in his bullshit storyline around this has named the hard drive Hunter Biden's laptop hard drive, right? That's how this works. It's basically, think of this as a trademark name for the hard drive he's been kicking around. Now, there are a lot of maggots and trolls and QAnons out there who go, there's child porn on the actual hard drive. There's child sexual exploitation. There's naked underage girls and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Just in case you don't know, and ignorance is no excuse, if you find a hard drive and it has that kind of shit on it, you immediately turn it over to the authorities. You don't copy it and pass out its contents to your friends and allies. Right? Does that seem to make sense? And you don't certainly keep making copies of it. Also, if that's the case, and they assert that it is, Rudy Giuliani has taken it to the Delaware state AG or whatever, which I think is Weiss, right? He might have even taken it to him. But he took it to the state police because he believed that there were underage girls on it. And by the way, after he had that meeting, he made other copies of it and gave it to civilians, other people. So he continued to disseminate what he believed to be child porn. And again, you don't have to actually have it. You can just believe that's what it is, in the same way that like Scott Ritter wasn't actually talking to a 15-year-old that he was going to ply with alcohol and have sex with. It turned out to be a police officer. You're just as guilty. Also, attempted murder should have the same punishment as murder. You're welcome. Anyways, that on top of that, you don't copy it and pass it around. And the New York Post, who has had a copy of this thing as long as anybody else, including Miranda Devine, by the way. Miranda Devine and the New York Post have given copies of their copy to people to look at and have not reclaimed and destroyed them, insofar as I know, which means that according to Rudy Giuliani, the New York Post and Miranda Devine are disseminating child porn. That is not my assertion. That is not my belief. That is materially true based on the assertions of Rudy Giuliani and the possession of said hard drive by the New York Post and Miranda Devine and everybody who has a copy of it. Now, again, this is one of the, there's a bunch of Gordian knots in the bullshit hard drive narrative. But one of the biggest ones is, and the QAnons are full of this, is that it's full of this kind of material. Again, if it is full of that kind of material and you are copying it and passing it around for your friends to look at, or in the case of Matt Gaetz, where you are trying to enter those contents into the congressional record. And by the way, you'll notice there was a stop down when he tried to do that, when Matt Gaetz tried to do that. And then they came back and he said materials that are alleged to be from the blah, 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 because they had to go copy specifics from it, not just hand in a whole copy, because Matt Gaetz's staff and Jim Jordan and everybody else were like, whoa, cut. Come here. Hey, fuckhead. Giuliani has said that there's naked pictures of underage girls and you would effectively be because the record is open, you would be doxing any of the women in there that were the sex workers or alleged sex workers or any of this other stuff, not to mention the other people, not to mention Peter Thiel's emails back and forth with Hunter and his crowd about Counsel, the program, the company that they invested in. Yeah, you're Matt, you're about to enter materials you believe to be pictures of naked underage girls into the congressional fucking record, which is a very Matt Gaetz way of doing things. Yeah, MTG showed Hunter's nudes on the floor, but for the record, if I may, the difference, I would say, is that he's an adult and they censored them. There is no situation where you show that kind of material on the floor, like make poster board of it, like what fucking kind of maniac, but also entering it into the record simply makes it available to anybody who can look at the unclassified record. It would not be classified. And again, you can probably, say that shit's online. Is this? Yeah, don't cut and paste this bullshit. How blind y'all gotta have it backwards because you've been deceived into believing you know the truth by those criminal charges are not made against the man's person, but against the crimes that he's being charged with. If you did not commit those crimes, with him being a person of the highest status with the arsenal of the greatest lawyers, then they could not possibly produce the evidence to produce that he did those crimes or took part in the planning of the events without a reason. You'll have no problem clearing his own name with the facts. The case will do it for. Oh, I see. You think Trump will be able to get away with this because he's got the best lawyers and because he was president during part of the criming? Yeah, in terms of the Georgia case, the state of mind part of it, the issue is that when he was in office, they took a lot of notes, and they have a lot of witnesses who heard him ask if they'd won and ask about the votes coming in and getting real answers and denying it on purpose. It doesn't matter. And again, if you vigilante kill an innocent man because you really thought they were guilty, you don't get off because you really thought they were guilty. You go to jail for murder because you were trying to be a vigilante. Doesn't save you. All right, what's the other one, Steve? Let's see. Did we could problem clear his name? Yes, he will. And by the way, he has no name anymore. All right. So they search for those ears that will hear them and what they believe in, because anything that they say, their side say, they believe that is good because the men, paid to see it or said it was, you believe them. Poor fool, because of all the courts and all the law enforcement agency, private which are staffed with professional civil, but to try a case being out of the light before the whole world, they will hear nothing. What's put forth by Russian psyops like Russian propaganda that Giuliani and Trump had a conservative talk host and them had been counterfeiting and distributing all across the land. That's what the Republicans' political spies are. Oh, I see. You're seeing that. You're talking about the other end of it. Surely we would not prosecute the innocent man, Donald Trump, if it was a hoax for real, and they would have no case on the Biden crime family stuff. That's occupying their ears, tying up their minds. Okay, I see. So yeah, I appreciate where you're going there, but fucking relax with the giant screeds. It's rude. Just saying. That's not chat behavior. I try to be. So I thought he was making the case that about Trump, and that's the problem with a language drop like that, my friend, is that you're gish galloping even amongst your own. Anyways, so scroll. That said, if I may, think. Yeah, walls of text are just bad form. Anyways, I like the show went like long today in kind of a cool way. Oops, something went wrong. Oh no, it's fine. And this afternoon we have plenty of stuff to talk about. God knows. I should dive into some of. I'm not going to do all of Mike Pillow's shit. Maybe his opening 10 minutes, because it's the same shit. It may be one of those situations where one of the few things where I pre-watch it because it's so fucking long. And we've watched him make the same stupid argument over and over. Wait, did Elon take over YouTube? No. He might try. Save that for your 4chan account, right? Thanks so much. That's really cool. That was really cool, by the way. If I may, hold on. I know I have it in here. This one? Yeah.
That was really cool, by the way.
I agree. Yeah. Put the bunny back in the box. YouTube is a monster. I don't know. I mean, I think the algorithm is written for, 13-year-olds with a form of autism by permanent 13-year-olds with a form of autism. And I don't mean that in the pejorative. I mean in the specific, that the coding aspect of it is so hyper-focused and so xenophobic in its own design that it creates this, you only want to see the thing you want to see, you want to see the thing you want to see, you only want to see the thing you want to see, and like, I don't want to see anything else. That's how the code is written, because they want to keep you online. And if you're in a mood for something, you will stay in that mood. And this idea that people have a short attention span is bullshit. Thank you guys for hanging out. I rest my case. Regardless, I got to sign off. I got a lot to do before this afternoon show. You guys are wonderful. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Have fun. Much love. Okay. And yeah, maybe we'll send a raid to John's party. We'll see. Okay.
It's really cool, by the way.
We're honored to have with us today our amazing Vice President, Mike Pence, and his wonderful wife, Karen.
I love layup.
So-called people that are looking.
Groovy. All I'm offering is the truth.
I know he can get the job, but can he do the job?
Did have shade.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines.
Would you classify that as a launch problem or a design problem?
Sorry, I farted.
I'd like to kick his ass just once.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
I am a HAL 9000 computer.
They just explode. When they gaze upon Yosemites, de-engineering, action replays in magnified fortune.
Just follow the money.
I got news for you, pal. You ain't leading but two things right now. Jack and shit. Jack left town.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. It's a dick for.
What's a dick for?